Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode from Your Own Pathway. For those who don't know me, my name is Poiab. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, turned empowerment life coach, and organizational leadership consultant, where I bring my expertise, my skills, and my knowledge to empower all of you to forge your own path and to own it. So, you know what? This episode may trigger a few of you, and honestly, if it does trigger you, I'm going to challenge you and ask you why you triggered. And this episode today, if you have not seen the title, is Why Are There So Many Wannabe Therapists Out There? And if you're a therapist watching this episode is for you, for us, and let's get right to it. Why are there so many wannabe therapists out there? And when I go network, I get so much people are kind of fascinated about the work that we do. I think because we do work that is recognized, but there's still so much question about it, and people really question a lot about mental health. And I would say since COVID, um there's been positive about the mental health awareness, but let's be honest, like within the 5 years too, mental health has been weaponized in so many ways that I'm gonna say has been quite negative. And that has actually inspired me to do quite a few YouTube episodes that I will be presenting. But today, let's get right into it. Why are there so many wannabe therapists out there? Yes. Why there are so many wannabe therapists out there? So, like I said, have you noticed? I've noticed that everyone, and including their mama, is suddenly a therapist. There's so many TikTok healers and Instagram coaches and YouTube mental health experts, and a few of them have actually been found out because we're in FAFO season. For those who don't know what FAFO is, research what that means. And all of these experts are giving out advice without ever stepping foot into a clinic or knowing the weight of holding someone's trauma. So, I've had so many people say to me, well, I could be a therapist because I listen well. Honey, being a therapist is more than listening well. Okay. I know I'm getting a little sassy today, and I have a reason to be sassy because I am frustrated. And so that's why I'm being a little sassy here. So, again, I decided to do this episode because there's such a huge confusion out there. People are mixing up therapy, coaching, and even motivational speaking as though it is the same thing. And it's not. Don't get me wrong, coaching is powerful. And as you heard my introduction, I switched from being a therapist to empowerment life coaching. And therapy is also powerful, but they're not interchangeable. And what we're seeing a lot is people are blurring those lines, which unfortunately leads to harm, disappointment, and a whole lot of misinformation. And let me say this. Again, a lot of people tell me, oh, I'll make a great therapist, Paya, because I love listening to people. Newsflash, honey. Newsflash, sweetheart. Therapy is more than just listening, okay? It is actually a science, it's training, it's ethical responsibility. It's walking someone through the depths of trauma and knowing how to hold that space safely. Because honestly, listening is just the surface. So that's why today we're talking about why there's so many wannabe therapists out there. Because again, I'm planning on having more episodes where I'm going to break down the real difference between coach and a therapist and why both have their place. And so I'm not shitting on therapists, I'm not shitting on coaches because again, coaches are so essential and they are also needed, especially in the helping profession. And I will also say it's important for coaches to stay in their lane. So, moving on, part one is why there's so many wannabe therapists. And part one is therapy is trending. So, not too long ago, therapy was very taboo. People whispered about it, avoided it, or saw it as someone for the broken or for crazy people or for people with there's something wrong with them. Again, I think COVID has really opened up the doors for mental health conversations, and I think that's such a positive thing. And because of that, therapy is now trending, and everyone is talking about mental health, and that is a wonderful, beautiful shift. But here is the catch. When therapy becomes trending, it also becomes watered down. So, we hear so many buzzwords like trauma, boundaries, and healing get thrown around without context. And there's so many influencers out there who start packaging therapy vibes without actually providing therapy. And I'm going to say that's very harmful. And that's where the confusion lies and begins is people who don't know about therapy and coaching can't tell the difference between a licensed therapist who spent years training to help you. By the way, being a therapist at minimum is about 8 years minimum. Okay. And that is for a master's degree therapist right there. And someone who took a weekend workshop or a 6-week certification program who now calls themselves a trauma coach. Whew. Okay. I'm trying not to get triggered here, all right? So but moving on. So, part two is what's the difference between being licensed and being a wannabe? All right. So here's the thing. The title therapist isn't just a vibe. It's earned through years of sweat, study, sacrifice, and sometimes tears. So first of all, we have to have our bachelor's degree, all right? And then we have to get our master's, which is 2 to 3 years of master's or doctoral, depending on which level, depending which path you take. So I have my master's in social work, okay? And so this is like in social work, other people do counseling, other people do psychology, other people do marriage and family. So it just depends on which path you take. After we graduate, we have to find a job that provides us with thousands of hours of supervised clinical hours, and we have to meet with their supervisor one on one, and they have to be an approved supervisor to even give us our clinical hours. Okay. So, we're not doing the type that says, I helped my best friend through a breakup once, so I'm a great therapist. Nope. Nope. After we do all of that, we have to submit all of our paper to our board, our state licensing board, and they approve us to take an exam. And so we have to take licensing exams, which is really designed to test our competency, our ethics, and our ability to help without causing harm. Okay? Without causing harm. Even after that, we have to have ongoing educations, continuing educations, okay? I just renewed my license and I had to take 40 credits of CEUs. And because I am a clinical supervisor, I also had to take courses in clinical and supervision also. So what does this do is it requires us to stay updated, accountable, and ethical about new situations or new populations that we may not be aware of. So, just hear me talk about this. This is a lot of work. And again, you know what though? This is not a shade, but a lot of people who don't have therapy training think that they can take a certification program or an online course that lasts 6 weeks to a few months and that this automatically qualifies them to be a therapist. Nope, babe, that's not how it works. Okay. There's a difference. between having a certification or specialty and being licensed. More often than not, you must be licensed first. And if you want to specialize, like for example, if you want to be a dialogue DBT or EMDR or do narrative or art therapy or any type of form of modality, you do more training after your license. Coaches with certificates may have skills, of course, and coaching is so valuable, but it's not therapy. Calling yourself a therapist without a license is false advertising, okay? And it misleads people who don't know the difference. Here's the thing, letting a wannabe therapist handle your mental health, it's like handing a scalpel to someone who binge watched Grey's Anatomy. Yes, they sound very convincing, but would you actually trust them with surgery? Okay. So moving on with the moving on. So part three is, why do the wannabe therapists? Why do they thrive? Why do they thrive so much? Because if it all takes to be licensed, why do wannabe therapists thrive so much? So let's talk about this. A lot of wannabe therapists, do you notice something? They have so much charisma. So right now, we live in a world where charisma and influence is more important than credentials. And so when you have charisma over credentials, social media often rewards who's the loudest, not who's licensed, okay? There's also accessibility. Coaching is often faster, cheaper, and easier to access than therapy, which may have long wait lists and, unfortunately, insurance hassles. If you find a therapist, if you choose to take the route of a therapist who takes insurance, if you do private pay, you probably have less barriers, but of course, you would have to make money in order to in order to have access to less of the barriers. Let's talk about this one, relatability. Oh my gosh, there's so many wannabe therapists out there that have so much relatability. And truthfully, wannabes share their stories. They make it sound very casual and seem more human, where therapists, we're all about our boundaries. Therapists, we are trained about our ethics and boundaries, and that is important, and that is our core right there, our ethics and boundaries. And there's also the distrust or mistrust of the systems. Many people, and I would say a lot of marginalized people, probably feel dismissed by the former mental health care. So they look for alternatives. And I have to say, right now, our mental health, especially here in the West, in the United States, is still it's very white, very Western trained. And so some providers may not still be very inclusive when it comes to working with marginalized communities. There's also, and we live in a very fast world with quick results, and quick fixes sell. I've heard shit like heal your trauma in 30 days, or 6 easy sessions and you can heal your trauma with whatever form of modality. Honestly, that sounds very appealing. And that sounds way more appealing than the slow, real process of therapy. So wannabes thrive because the game rewards attention and instant gratification. But those aren't the same rules as true healing. So moving on to part four, which is why the wannabes cause harm. So, on the surface, wannabe therapists might seem harmless, but here is the reality. Number one, unsafe trauma handling, saying the wrong thing in a crisis isn't just harmless, it's so dangerous. Number two is blurry boundaries. We're all about boundaries. And unfortunately, wannabes often create a dependency or overshare. Licensed therapists, we are trained to protect boundaries. Number three is providing the false confidence and false hope. So when things don't work out, clients often end up blaming themselves when quick fixes do not work. Number four is misinformation often gets spread. And so, sometimes oversimplified quotes go viral, while real therapeutic truths often get buried. Um, the next one, exploitation. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of this, and I've seen a lot of people called out who have very well known platforms on social media be called out for their exploitation by charging thousands of unregulated healing packages with zero oversight, with zero ethics, with zero boundaries, with zero integrity. And we talked about this is the distrust of therapy. People who've been burned by wannabes often believe therapy itself doesn't work when they've actually never experienced it. So unfortunately, the harm is very real. And so, I talked about this earlier on is the distrust of therapy and people who unfortunately have been burned by wannabe therapists often believe that therapy itself does not work when they've actually never experienced this. And I've seen this in comments where a lot of people say, well, therapy doesn't work. It's a waste of money. And you should just go talk to like your grandma or grandpa or like your church pastor. I'm thinking, okay, these people either A, don't know anything about therapy, or B, have unfortunately been caused more harm than good because maybe they tried to seek out services and wasn't sure if it was therapy or coaching and actually received more harmful feedback than good. And when that happens to someone, I mean, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for not trusting the system or the process. And so the harm, unfortunately, is very real. And the harm includes the emotional, the financial, the psychological, the spiritual, and unfortunately, in some cases that I have seen and heard, can be very life threatening in cases also. And so, moving on is why? Why does this conversation matter so much? And why am I doing this episode? Because all of this matters because it's not just about titles, it's about trust, it's about safety, and most importantly, it is about people's lives. Therapy and coaching, both of them matter, and they are not interchangeable. When someone blurs the line, the end result is people get hurt. So, mental health is not a trend. Healing deserves protection. And most importantly, your journey deserves integrity. So here's my call to action for who's watching this, who is a therapist, coach, or you are a potential client or a consumer, is if you are a consumer, ask questions and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to vet your provider. Don't be afraid to ask them questions. Don't be afraid to ask them about their credentials. If you're a coach and you're watching this, I support you all. You all are doing wonderful jobs. There's so much coaching out there, there's so many realms of coaching. And if you're not a therapist and you're not therapist trained, please stay in your lane, okay? Because coaching is powerful when it is done ethically. For future clients, if you want a therapist, choose credentialed support because you deserve safety and not just sound bites or what is popular or what sounds good at the time that you're watching it. Because at the end of the day, likes do not equal licenses. Credentials do matter, ethics matter, and most importantly, your mental health matters. So, that is all I have for today. And yes, I was a little bit sassier than usual. And you can see that I'm very passionate about this topic because, again, I am seeing more harm. I'm seeing more people do harm than good. I see people who are practicing out of their scope of practice. I see people who are giving themselves titles that they did not earn and are selling that title to give themselves more I don't want to say leeway, but are giving themselves the credentials or the title that seem more that they have the expertise when they don't. And like I said, we are in FAFO season, and unfortunately, what goes around does come around. And if you are someone who is utilizing or practicing unethically without integrity, things will catch up. And again, I'm not doing this to threaten or warn people or to make anybody look bad. My intention in doing this episode is to really educate because, again, therapists who are ethically trained, we're ethically trained, and our end goal is to really practice within our scope of practice and to also not create harm, to do less harm. So that is all. And again, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button. And if you are new to my channel and are not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. All the support means the world to me. And that is all I have for today. Take care of yourself, stay safe, and stay healthy. Until next time, take care.